didn't have like all the marketing training or anything like that. It was genuinely that gut feeling. People always say, oh, you know, when do you first start Grenade or whatever? But I think it's the work experience, like the 15, 20 years before that almost give you the authority to play in that space. But I don't think it really clicked that there was nothing different until we started to think about doing our own brand. The biggest change after that was Carb Killa, which was obviously the massive step from sports nutrition into mass market food.
When I was doing the research, I was thinking, did Grenade break up your marriage? But it sounds like it was actually the complete opposite.
Well, we stayed together because we were building Grenade. Grenade was just so important to us. I think it was probably more important than being husband and wife. That was why we were meant to meet, is to build this phenomenal business. I feel that it kept us together. That was our glue.
What does it feel like the first morning you wake up and realise that actually there'll never be a time where you have to worry about money ever again?
But I worry about money every day. A lot of people start their business thinking I'm going to sell. Even though we probably thought that, we made decisions daily, weekly, monthly, annually or whatever on what was right for the business. I was just sobbing for like a week because I just felt like this was really final and it was almost like you were giving away your child.
Does it still feel like that now? If you, Juliet, had to say the one thing that made Grenade the success that it is, and I realise even that question is probably going to make you go, well, but it wasn't a success, we just made some protein chocolate bars. But if there's one thing that made it the mega behemoth success that it was, what would that one thing be?
Giving a shit. I know that's more than one word, but it was, there was loads of attention to detail, so we cared about everything and we put everything into it. So we were never 100% happy, because I don't think entrepreneurs ever are, but you know, we were really happy with the products that we launched and the marketing campaigns, and we cared about everything. Is that like a really wishy-washy answer?
No, if that's the truth,
yeah,
you think
definitely.
That's the answer. So Grenade started, you guys were originally, or Al, your business partner, husband, co-founder, co-creator and collaborator, already had a distribution business. You guys were already in like the supplementy,
yeah, that's right,
health and fitness space anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, people always say, oh, you know, when do you first start Grenade or whatever? But I think it's the work experience, like the 15, 20 years before that almost give you the authority to play in that space.
Yeah.
So I talk to a lot of people now that I've got this really good idea, I want to do this product. And I'm like, well, have you got any experience in AI or tech? No. It's just like, well, maybe do something that you've got the sort of grounding in. So yeah, we had a distribution business selling other people's products to gyms and health clubs. So we had quite good sort of work experience and knowledge of what sold and what didn't sell and what people wanted. And we used all of that when we launched Grenade products. So we took on board all that feedback and, you know, from the gym, from the users, from what we'd seen out there that other brands were doing.
So was the original plan then to be a supplement business solely distributing again through gyms and health clubs and that kind of model that you were already in to start with?
Yeah, again, because that's what was familiar to us.
Yeah.
And also remember, this was like sort of 2010, so things are very different in like 2026 than they were like 16 years ago. So the model that we used was, I mean, we sold the last distribution business and Alan and I sort of retired, but I think we lasted like 6 weeks because we got really bored. And then when we launched Grenade, we were actually in Florida. So we were sat there and we'd got the product, done all like the sort of legwork to get it out there, but we'd gone to 2 distributors that we'd used previously. And we sat there and we could log onto the portal to see what was selling. And we looked and nothing was selling. We thought, oh shit, you know, we looked the next day, nothing was selling. And we thought, you know what, for this to be a success, we need to get back to the UK and we need to make it work. And that's really where the sort of hard work started.
So had you moved to Florida then?
No, we were just sort of on this idea that, you know, we could start this business, but we can do it from wherever we
Laptop
were in the
lifestyle,
world.
which was very popular.
Never fucking happened. We ended up coming back and like working harder than we'd ever worked before. So it was crazy.
So you'd gone from distributor to almost like manufacturer, and you were going to use distribution connections you already had to effectively operate the same model, spotting there was a gap in the market within what had already been selling before, and that was going to be the model moving forwards for it.
Yeah, but we'd never had a brand before. So like you said, we had a distribution business. So we knew that people would come to us to buy products. But when it's your brand, you need to get your brand out there to other people. So you're not a box mover anymore. You're almost like not creator, because that's like a really sort of wanky word, but you've got to get your brand out there and give people a reason to buy it. So yeah, it's much harder.
And what was the gap in the market? You knew there was a gap in the market. What was the gap in the market at the time when you just intended to be like a supplement business?
Yeah, so again, like back in 2010, everything was sort of sports supplements. So there wasn't like this sort of supplements in supermarkets like there is now.
Yeah.
So everything was sold in very specialist shops, in gyms, and in GNC. And
I remember
Alan
Barratt.
I think it was called something different over here then.
Like bodybuilding places, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
We were too intimidating for most normal people to walk
small
into.
Pants. Yeah. But that was the look that people were after then. And, at that particular point, everything was coming from the US, and that was very much like a US look. So they had like the Olympias and whatever else. And we knew that everything was in generic white tubs, so nothing was really distinctive. Everything looked the same on the shelf, and they all had really scientific names. So Xenadrin, Zedracut, Hydroxycut, and you couldn't remember what they were called when you stepped outside of that gym or that health shop. So we wanted something that was really distinctive, that it didn't matter where you were in the world, what language you spoke, you would know what it was called by the look and feel of that product. Hence the grenade-shaped container.
So how did you know that was the route to market to go down then, when everything else is scientific names and it's white labelled, product, and it's in white tubs generally, and they've got very scientific names? What was the, the brand building experience or expertise that you now had? You like, no, we need to make something that's like very obvious, talks to the layperson, so it's not just science-focused bodybuilders. Effectively, what made you realise that was the gap? There was obviously a space for it, but what gave you the confidence to go, that's a gap that actually needs filling?
You're very eloquent.
Thank you. I do try. I lost myself halfway through.
I liked it. But no, I mean, we didn't have like all the marketing training or anything like that. It was genuinely that gut feeling.
Was it?
Yeah, definitely. And Al used to love the military. So when we used to go to Florida on holiday or whatever, he literally used to like sit and watch a military channel for like 2 weeks. It was like always on in the background.
Sounds like a great holiday company.
It was wonderful. Yeah. And like, we had a lot of friends in the military and stuff. And we used to give all of our friends products to try. So they were like unpaid guinea pigs, and, they were trying it. No, that's not great. Doesn't give me any sort of impact or whatever. And then we gave, I don't know what version it was of the capsules, a guy a capsule to try. And he was like, that was a grenade going off. And we thought, you know what, that could work. And then coupled with that, obviously the grenade is synonymous with the shape of a grenade. So we thought, well, if we do the container that's grenade shape, then it doesn't matter what language you spoke, where you are in the world, you would know what it was called by the look and feel of the container. So it all started to tick the boxes. And also Al used to love paintball. So the back of our garage was like some sort of arms dealership. There were smoke grenades and like all these he got banned from like some sort of paintball things. He'd changed the calibration of his gun, so it's like firing really quickly, so took it very seriously. So like the back of that garage was like full of smoke grenades and all sorts, so it all just sort of made sense, if that makes sense.
So when you sold the distribution business, was grenade already bubbling in the background, or was this like we're going to retire, we go to Florida, like, oh my god, after 6 weeks I can't sit and watch the military channel with you for the rest of my life, we've got to do something else?
What are you saying?
No, I'm putting words into your mouth. No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying
great company on the military channel, but no, I mean, I'm good at spending money.
Sure.
And like we were quite young then, we were probably like late 20s, like early 30. No, late 20s we were. So like you've got a long period of time where your money's got to last.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready to stop working. So we knew that we were going to do something else at some point. We didn't realise it would literally be on holiday 3 weeks after we retired that we got bored, and we knew that we were going to go again.
So what was the plan though? To have a little break and a breather?
Yeah. So we were in Malaysia, and we were in a swimming pool in some hotel in Malaysia, and like that was it, right? We both said to each other, like, we need to do something else, we're bored.
And so the gap in the market that you'd spotted, had you already seen that when you had the distribution business? Did you sort of look and go, well, why is no one making a product that is a brand that resonates and has an audience by itself for what it stands for, not just what the product actually is? Or did you get to that Malaysian hotel and go, oh my God, come on, what are we going to do? Let's fill that gap?
I think that's probably what we did. I mean, we'd obviously had years of selling other people's products, so you know what sold and what didn't sell. But I don't think it really clicked that there was nothing different until we started to think about doing our own brand.
Right.
And I know it sounds a bit weird, but there's always a bit of the founders in entrepreneurial brands.
Yeah,
so it's always a bit of their DNA and their personality. So, you know, Al loving military, and I'm a bit of a brand person. Like, I'll go into duty free and I'll like look long and little, all the bottles of gin. That sounds like an alcoholic, but I'm not. But
you're really selling yourself here. You're back company on holiday, and all you want to do is go to the gym.
Yeah, and then, but you know, you're selling the same product but in different packaging. So, you know, I think it was a combination of having friends in the military, wanting something distinctive. The whole idea of like a grenade going off was just like, yeah, you've got like a powerful product that people can feel working. So it was like a caffeine-based product. So it all just made sense.
But your pal testing it and going, that's like a grenade going off, that means that you'd already got to the point where you've got like an MVP or a concept for something.
Yeah.
So did you, what came to the realization of caffeine-based pre-workout capsules? How did you get to that?
Yeah, so we never wanted to be like driven on commodities. So we didn't want to start off with like a protein brand or whatever else, because everyone does that. And that's obviously, you can't really feel that working. But, you know, with a caffeine-based product, you can feel it working. It's like a, you know, punch in the face. And
I remember the original product. We used to spoon it. I don't know if you should have done that, whether you're supposed to mix it with water, but you'd like neck it with either the capsules or one point was there a powder version?
We did a pre-workout. That was just afterwards. That was 50 caliber. That was like rocket fuel. I nearly killed myself on that.
Yeah, I've never worked out so hard in my life.
Yeah, that's what I like this, thinking that you're going to have a heart attack. But no, I mean, what were we saying then? I can't remember.
So the gap in the market that you'd spotted already.
Yeah, so I think it was, we got contacts, so we'd worked with like suppliers in North America before and whatever else. And I think it was having the experience selling other people's brands, realising that there was a gap and nothing was particularly distinctive, and thinking we could fill that with this global brand that, you know, it didn't matter what language you spoke, you would know what it was called. And it all just sort of fell into place.
So you're going to go down the supplement route.
Yeah.
And then you obviously at a certain point, and I've heard you say this on another podcast you're on, that you can build a brand with one product. I thought that was really interesting. So you start with the thermal detonator, which was the famous sort of, it looked like a grenade. The bottle looked like the capsules of a grenade.
Yeah.
How far down the line of that product did you go where you were like, oh, we're onto something here. People are resonating with this brand, not just with the product.
Oh, I mean, that's a difficult question. I mean, we wanted to be the Red Bull of sports nutrition. So we wanted one product that did what it said on the tin, that everyone, you know, would use because they felt it working. So it was like a credible product. But I remember launching in Holland and Barratt, and because we had a product in a grenade-shaped plastic container, it did look a bit gimmicky, even though it wasn't, you know, all the ingredients were tested and it really did work. I think it was someone there that said to us, do you know what, you probably need another product because people are going to think it's a bit gimmicky and it could be seen as a bit of a toy and a jokey product. And that's when we started to bring out the other supplements.
Right.
But it was never our intention.
But so you've just sort of like casually just tossed in there when we were putting it into Holland and Barratt.
Yeah.
Like that's quite a big step for most brands. Like that's the hallmark of success. That's the catalyst, or as far as maybe the goal or the aspiration gets to. How on earth, with one product as two co-founders who just spotted a gap in the market, do you get to a position where you can get your product into Holland and Barratt? Again, does it go back to the previous distribution business that you had?
Yeah, definitely. So we had contacts. So we used to sell and buy off distributors, and they used to supply Holland and Barratt.
Right.
But again, you know, we did BodyPower at the NEC in 2010. So we'd only been on sale probably a couple of months. And that was our first sort of big trade show. So we hired a tank and drove it into the NEC. And there was Alan and I standing there with a couple of put-up banners looking like a right couple of pair of knobs, because we really didn't know what we were doing. And everyone else had like these stand builders coming in from Europe with these huge stands, and there was me standing there like with a pull-up banner. But actually, that, because we look so different, nobody had really seen like a tank in the NEC before. Sounds a bit of a strange sort of statement, but
I'm not surprised.
It just stood out.
Yeah.
And it was probably a month, 2 months after that, actually it was the end of May, we got an email from GNC in the US, and they said, look, you know, we get hundreds of products over our desk every month, but we really want to stock you. And that was because people, the buyers from GNC had seen us at the NEC. We stood out and they thought, do you know what, this could work. So they reached out to us. So it was just looking different that got us that attention to start off with. People were intrigued by it. You know, they were seeing something in a grenade-shaped container. They'd never seen that before.
I remember
so it was almost like they want to have it on their shelves.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a bright orange tank, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. Actually, I think the first one was a green one. I think we sort of progressed to like orange and gold and various other colours.
And then you had all of the... So a mutual friend of ours, Kirk Miller, who used to be a client of ours actually for the podcast agency, I remember him being one of the sponsored athletes or whatever you call them.
Yeah.
And BodyPower... I think it's mad, actually, that from this neck of the woods, like in the Midlands, you've got Gymshark, BodyPower, Grenade. What is it about round here that is so good for incubating world-leading sort of health and fitness brands?
I think it's just geography. I mean, there are great British brands all over the place. It's lucky that we are so close to Gymshark and, you know, other sort of fashion brands and stuff that are up here.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just maybe, I mean, it's a big city, isn't it, Birmingham?
Yeah,
so second city and stuff. But we didn't have any athletes at that first show. So it was just Alan and I. And it was there that we met a lot of people.
Right.
And obviously people saw what we were doing and they really liked it. And that's how we started to build our team of athletes because, you know, social media wasn't really a big thing back then.
No.
So it was almost about building credible athletes like Kirk and Jamie Alderton and like Claire Harper.
Oh, Grenade J, he used to be called, didn't he, on his Instagram? That's
so
right.
they sort of, we used them because we were a genuine brand. We didn't want to missell anyone or mislead them. So we used credible athletes that used the product and loved it to almost become our advocates.
So obviously, like I say, 16 years ago was a very different time in this sort of the business ecosystem, direct to consumer. If we had the sort of the business landscape we have now back then, I mean, Grenade would have flown probably even quicker potentially. But when you're going to those first trade shows with a very limited budget, you can't bring in the big fancy stand builders, so you rock up with a tank and some pull-up banners. What's the business model behind that? Are you trying to grab attention for distribution into retail at that point? Is that the model that you have to kind of follow or you thought you were going to follow?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because it's what we knew, you know, it's where our experience was selling to distributors that then sold into retail or then sold to gyms or whatever else. So, you know, yes, if we'd have gone more D2C early days, then it probably would have grown quickly. But it wasn't our area of expertise. You know, we weren't e-com people. You know, we were brand builders. Bricks and mortar was where, you know, supplying gyms was where our experience came from. So that just seemed like the natural route to us. And remember, you know, supermarkets didn't really have, you know, Marks and Spencer's, they didn't have protein shakes then, you know. None of this was a thing in mass market FMCG. It was really only sold in specialist stores. It's only because protein started to become so normalised and Weetabix, for example, started to put like protein on their cereals and it became a normal thing that people should be consuming. That's when the retailers started to be interested in it.
So obviously we talked there about things like Holland and Barratt and the great achievements of things like, you know, going in a tank and getting the attention of like a GNC. I've heard a very famous story that I think I've heard Al tell more times than you, but there have, you know, the sort of the darker times of the business. Like at one point there was £27 in the business bank account and not enough money for payroll and all that other stuff. Obviously in the journey of Grenade, it's such a storied British brand and it seems like it's just a sort of almost a unicorn that's done so well so quickly. But obviously no, you know, business story is going up and to the right all the time. Were there ever moments when you thought, oh my God, we thought there was a gap in the market, we thought we could fill it by being really, you know, different in this space? Was there a point you went, bloody hell, the market just wants what it wants, we've picked the wrong lane here?
No.
Really?
Never. And it's not because we were arrogant, but we had genuine belief that what we were doing was the right thing to do. And a lot of people now don't like to feel not anxious, but they don't like any stress or any challenges. And they see that as a really real negative, but it isn't. It's, you know, it's only a positive, and it just drives you even more. So tough times are part of having a business, and you get through them. But we always had that genuine belief that what we were doing was right. And I'm a big believer in, you know, when you've got your own business, it's your choice. You could easily go and get a PAYE job and like be guaranteed that paycheck at the end of the month. But you don't start your own business for that. You start your own business for the journey and the learning and the highs and the lows and everything. God, I sound so virtuous. But I do remember, like Alan and I, we had 3 mortgages between us. And I remember our lying on the bedroom floor upstairs, and we were like, oh shit, you know, this is hard. You know, we really have no money. But you get through it because you believe in what you were doing. And we ran really lean to start off with. You know, we had a first round of private equity investment in 2014, and that was cash out of the business. You know, it was very cash generative from sort of day one. But, you know, we knew what we were doing was right, and we knew we'd get there. We didn't know how we'd get there, but we always believed that we would. So that makes those real low points, you know, easier.
Do you, in them, it's obviously easy to retrospectively look back on the low points and go, oh yeah, but we knew we were going to make it. Did you know in your heart in that moment that you were going to make it still? No matter how hard it is, like lying on the bedroom floor, the 3 mortgages, the paperwork, probably the red letters that are like, this is past due, this is past final payment, we're going to send someone to knock the front door to get our cash. Do you still, in those moments, still truly in your soul be like, yeah, but this is going to work out?
Well, I think one thing, we never didn't pay anyone. So we got told off by some of our suppliers for paying too quickly. So Alan and I didn't take salary for like 4 years. We didn't take a day off. So we did run really lean, but we made sure that all of our suppliers got paid, because as soon as you start missing payments with them, you lose their trust. So that was really important to us. Grenade was never about us. It was about a business that everyone won, if that made sense. So the manufacturers made money, we made money, consumers got great products. So it had to work for everyone. So we were real adamant that we always paid people. But, you know, we just maybe cut back on an advert here and then, and we didn't have any staff, like I said. And, you know, we just needed to sell more product. And that's obviously what drove us to do that.
So you start in 2010, you get first round of funding in 2014. Yeah. You still had no staff at that point?
No, I think we had an office manager, and we had 1 product, maybe 2 by then actually, like the thermo detonator, but we didn't have Carb Killa then. So it was still very much a caffeine-based brand.
Right.
And the reason we got private equity in 2014, like I said, we were cash generative, so it wasn't for that reason. But caffeine was getting a bit twitchy in Europe. And obviously we were still in Europe then, and they were taught that it might be banned. So we thought, oh shit, you know, if they ban caffeine, then literally our brand has gone, our business has gone overnight. Yeah. So it was almost a de-risk a little bit.
And with that, did you know that taking on that first round of money, that then to de-risk it, you could put attention and resource into extending the product range outside of caffeine related stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we were always planning on doing that anyway. And, you know, we had the money in the business to do that. So that was really just for us to de-risk, take a bit of cash out, you know, buy the dream house or whatever else, and then press the reset button and go again.
Pay yourself some salaries after 4 years.
I think we did, actually. I think it's only because the investors told us to.
Yeah, you have to, don't you? Yeah,
definitely. Because like, we know there's nothing to incentivize you. Well, actually there is, but it was never about like the salaries. But they encouraged us, or made us rather, bring on a CFO.
Right.
Because we didn't have finance in the business. So Alan and I were there with like our spreadsheets and whatever. And we really didn't give a shit about the numbers. It was more about like the brand. Yeah. So they brought on a CFO, which was the best hire. His CEO now, Tom, has been in the business sort of 10 years or 12 years. And actually that just freed Alan and I up to do what we were really good at doing, which was like selling and building the brand.
Was there a during that process of taking on that first sort of round of funding, and when they sort of almost like bring a grown up into the room, like, well, actually, you guys, we need to get the Excel spreadsheet, put that away, and we need to run this on a proper accountancy software, and we need to do projections and P&Ls and all this sort of stuff. Was there a point of it where you'll go through the due diligence? You're like, we're cash generative, we're having a laugh. We don't need that bloody money. What's the point in this? Like, making us jump through all these hoops? Or was it when you saw what they could bring to the party, like, oh my God, imagine we've achieved so much in 4 years with just our understanding of what we bring to the party. Imagine having a CFO who could take us to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't actually know that a CFO would come on with that at that point.
Right.
And actually, you know, we got investment of Grove Point because we liked them, not because they could necessarily bring people to the table. So a lot of the brands I work with now, they're looking at either money or they're looking at experience.
Right.
And I think for us, like, because caffeine was becoming a bit twitchy, it was that de-risking that was really important. It was almost just like a bit of a well done, this is what you've achieved so far. Let's see what you can do now.
Yeah.
So the business was growing. They didn't really get involved in the day-to-day, which was great because, you know, we weren't reporting to them all the time.
Yeah.
And then with having a CFO, you know, they obviously need their forecasting and whatever else. So, you know, Tom could do all of that and Alan and I didn't have to worry about that. So bringing on people that are better than you in certain areas makes your life easier because they can focus on that stuff and you don't have to.
So when you took on that money in 2014, what was the biggest accelerator that you could really double down into because you now had surplus cash to bankroll the next stage?
I think because that was cash out, so no cash actually went into the business, so it made no difference for business trading day to day. But the biggest change after that was Carb Killa, which we launched in 2015, which was obviously the massive step from sports nutrition into mass market food.
Gotcha.
So that was the huge step change for the business.
What then, with the cash out deal, what does it feel like the next morning? And I say this as an entrepreneurial founder who aspires to have these days eventually. What does it feel like the first morning you wake up and realise that actually there'll never be a time where you have to worry about money ever again?
But I worry about money every day.
Oh, do you still now?
Oh, definitely.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the weirdest. I mean, some psychiatrists would have an absolute field day with me because I can literally go and spend a ridiculous amount of money, like travel. I love travel. And I wouldn't think twice about spending a lot on travel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I walk around the house in pitch black. So I'm like, I can't leave a light on. And like all that sort of stuff.
I would not be walking around here in the pitch black. It would freak me out.
It's completely bizarre. So I'm just a bit weird. So I worry about it all the time. And I think because you know how hard you've worked to get it, you just don't want to waste it. You feel like there's this bit of a responsibility to do the right thing with it.
Oh, interesting.
God, this is really deep.
Lie back. Let's psychoanalyse this.
You just don't want to go. I mean, you hear of people that win the lottery, don't you? And then they go and spunk it all on like whatever else.
Yeah, but they don't know how to. They've never had the financial education on the way to get it. It's like you've gone from having zero to having 15 million. This the Michael Carroll incident, isn't it? Where he bought all the 15 million quid off go-karts and quad bikes and stuff. But obviously, you've got the financial education. Do you think you said something there about the responsibility? Have you ever thought of the financial side as a burden?
Yes, all the time.
Really?
And that sounds really weird. Like the second deal, and I know we'll probably come on to that. I know the final deal, actually, the Mondelez deal, my lawyer actually had to phone me up and say, Jules, have you looked in your bank account? I was like,
make sure you've got the money.
Because I just wasn't interested in it.
Yeah.
And there's such a responsibility. Like I'm a bit of a fixer, as in people come to me to fix stuff, not financially, but with life in general. You know, like I can't do this, can't do that. So there is that responsibility. And I feel that there is a responsibility to provide as well. So like, you know, to make sure my family are all right, my mum, you know, my sister, I feel I need to look after people. And also, you know, I think the more you've got, the more expensive it is. So I almost dream of like this really simple life where, you know, I've got a little house and I can just lock up the front door and then I get my bill at the end of the month and it's all fine. But
you told us one bedroom, massive wardrobe, 20 bathrooms. I mean, it's a very weird house.
Let's not, it doesn't exist.
It's a very weird
and it would be very unsellable if, well, I know one other person would want that. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, you do feel a responsibility because what's that saying? Easy come, easy go. But you know how hard you worked for it, so you just don't want to waste it. And maybe it's become worse through the Mondelez deal because that's it now with Grenade. So we always knew there was another round of private equity or whatever else. Well, we hoped there was. Obviously, you know, the business could have gone tits up and then, you know, there wouldn't have been. But that was quite final. So I sort of fully exited then. So that was it. So it's almost like, right, I've got this pot. It's got to last.
Forever.
So
with the Mondelez thing, so we're skipping all over the place. Chronologically, people are going to be like, where are we at now? I just want to have the conversation though. So Mondelez, you do the deal. I've heard you talk about this on another podcast. You had to go to your lawyers at like 1:30 in the morning to sign this paperwork because everything had run late. Then you sort of wake up the next morning and you're like, oh, kind of happened yesterday then, didn't it? Almost like it was a fever dream.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all quite surreal. I mean, those processes, for anyone that's been through them, are like really hard work. So Grenade was like our baby. We didn't have kids. So everything we put so much effort and time and love into it. And like through all the due diligence processes, you know, it's like someone's picking holes in your baby. You know, your baby's fat, your baby's ugly, your baby's not very clever. You take it all really fucking personally, you know, and it's just like, why did you do this thing? Just because we did it, you know, because we wanted to. It was
fun in 2014.
Yeah,
exactly.
Shut up. And like, you just feel that you're being constantly questioned. So they're really, really draining processes.
Yeah.
You know, as you go through them, you know, round 2, it was easier because we had a bigger team and they dealt with a lot of the due diligence. And then obviously the Mondelez, we had quite a large team. So we were shielded from quite a lot of it. But, you know, from that week before when the deal was actually done, it's like an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I'm a crier, as in I'll cry at like, I don't know, something on the TV or like anything to do with dogs. I'm sobbing like this, but then I'm really hard and cold in other ways. Right. So like if anyone did anything to Peanut, I'd like kill him. But, you know, if I see, I can't say anything, so I'll sound like a complete psychopath. But, you know, in other areas, I'm really cold and I show no emotion at all. But I was just sobbing for like a week.
Sobbing why?
Because I just felt like this was really final and it was almost like you were giving away your child.
Does it still feel like that now?
And I'm sort of over it now.
But what if when you walk down the aisle of any supermarket now and you can't get away from this product? I mean, it is, I think it's the most popular chocolate bar in the country.
Yeah, it's on Amazon and stuff.
What is that like? When you see it on the shelf, do you sort of want to pick up and go, I made that?
Well, I think I'm still like, a bit weird.
Oh my God.
No, I'm not at all. I genuinely feel proud of what we achieved.
Right,
and, you know, the journey was just such good fun. I mean, I know there were highs and there were lows, but I do it all over again. But I'm still massively proud, but also really protective over it. So if I see like a Grenade bar on the floor, like a wrapper, I'm like, oh, litterbugs. But then I feel really proud because it's like a Grenade bar. But, you know, I go into supermarkets and I like turn the bars around so like they're facing in the right way and like straighten them up.
The local shop's like, oh God, she's back again. Oh no.
Oh, it's like, well,
I never the protein bar aisle, tiny, she's back.
Shoplifter. I'm joking aside, funny anecdote. Like I remember when we first launched in the Tesco's, it must have been like early 2015. And Alan and I obviously had like no time on our hands, but we were like obsessed. So we went to the Tesco's in Coventry, like 11 o'clock at night or whatever, obviously complete shithole full of piss people. we were in like the Tesco's in the sports nutrition bit. And like, there were these guys and they were looking at like the Grenade products. I don't think it was the bars then, it was the actual product, like the Grenade thermodetonator. And I went up to them and I was like, they were obviously like a bit hammered. I said, oh, do you like that Grenade? What do you think of it? And I was like, fucking shut up, you got a Grenade sweatshirt on. And it was just like, oh no. So I'd gone in there like fully branded up and started
one-on-one salesperson.
Yeah, it was just like, it's not a good look.
Let's pause there because what Juliet's really talking about here is one of the hardest things that you can do in business. It's not just launching a product, but helping create the category it belongs in. Now, here's what that really means. A lot of founders talk about wanting to be the first. They want to create a category, but what often gets missed is this. If the category does not properly exist yet in the mind of the customer or the consumer, you don't just have to sell your product, you have to educate the market at the same time. And that is a much harder job because now you're not only trying to persuade people to choose you over someone else, you're trying to persuade them that this whole thing actually matters in the first place. We've talked about the importance of the education piece before on building the brand. Raj from Hydro, for example, shared with us that the education piece was the reason why they opted to go to market through sports teams, not direct to consumer initially. The education piece is what Juliet is describing here. Grenade were not just trying to get people to buy their protein bar, they were actually having to help retailers understand why protein belonged in mainstream food retail at all. They were helping consumers to understand why this was actually relevant beyond bodybuilders and hardcore gym culture. And they were effectively building the bridge between niche sports nutrition and mass market consumer behaviour. That is a very different challenge to just launching another SKU into an established category. And that's the reason why I think this point really matters so much, is because it can be romanticized to create a category. People love the idea of being early. They like the idea of pioneering something new. But being early is expensive, it's slower, it takes much more patience. And very often the first battle is not against the competition, it's against confusion. So the lesson here is simple. If you want to create a new category or even reshape an old one, on, you need to be prepared to do two jobs at the same time. Build the product and also build the understanding. Because if the market doesn't yet know why it should care, it doesn't matter how good what you've made actually is. Now, let's get back to it. I remember back in the early days, though, if you went into a Tesco's, you could walk around there. Oftentimes they have like AV departments in the bigger ones. It was the thermal detonator that used to be in a protected box.
Yeah, they still are.
It used to be in like a plastic, but you'd have to take it to a special counter to get it out.
Oh, we were so proud. But then they actually put, like, we did a trial pack with 4 capsules in. They started to put those in there. It was just like, fucking hell, you know, they're like, 99p or whatever they were. But, you know, they were a really nickable products. And you almost feel, well, actually, I'm not condoning shoplifting, but... you know, you've got something that people want.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's like a big compliment, but obviously they should pay for it. But yeah, I think most sort of sports nutrition products are in like lockable cases now in the supermarket.
So with the Mondelez thing, so you have the sort of the week of feeling bereft of the business.
Yeah.
Why was it the time for you to, because Al's still involved a bit?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I just felt it was the time because it became less about the brand and more about the numbers. So it was probably the right time for me to go. Maybe I didn't feel I could add any more value, or, you know, it got to that stage where, you know, I wasn't in love. I mean, I still was in love with it, but it wasn't like the brand building stages.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I compared like doing that deal to having root canal. You know, you dread it all week, and then when it's there, it's done. It's just like a massive anticlimax and it's over and done with. So probably not the best sort of analogy to use, isn't it? Yeah.
Especially for the founders, you sit on their boards now. Well, at the end of this, guys, after all this hard work, it's going to be like a root canal and you're glad when it's over.
We just feel a bit numb. And like I remember taking her for a walk out because it was it was some golf course somewhere, and it was just such a lovely walk. But it was almost like, I don't know, you just, maybe it's because I'm like emotionally void, but you just cut it off. Yeah, it's just like, right, that's done. Let's move on. But it took a long time afterwards to actually move on from that and find a purpose again, because you feel a bit lost.
Yeah.
Because everything over the last like 11 years had been grenade related. So our holidays were linked in with work. Our friends were linked in with work. You know,
of course.
We socialised with people from the office. And then suddenly all that wasn't there anymore. It's just like, oh shit, who am I?
So is it like a loss of identity to an extent as well, the thing that you're grieving for that sort of during that period? Is it like who am I without this?
Yeah, definitely. So it was always like Juliet from Grenade.
Yeah.
And like suddenly it wasn't. I mean, it is still Juliet from Grenade, but like Juliet that founded Grenade as opposed to actually from there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very lucky that I haven't lost anyone that's like particularly close to me. So I haven't really gone through that, but I did genuinely feel loss. And it was almost a bit surreal that it just wasn't there anymore. And
when you decided that you were going to be out, and that was your part of it done, did you talk to Al about it and say, I think it's time for me to step aside and have that conversation with him? Or are you sort of making, although you co-founded it, is that like an independent decision for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it sort of happened before that. So I wasn't involved. I still had equity, but I wasn't involved in the day-to-day from like 2019. So it was almost a bit of a gradual exit, if that makes sense. But yeah, it was very, very final then. And Al felt the same. I mean, he obviously stayed. He had like sort of, you know, where he'd agreed, I think it was 3 years or 2 years that he stayed for. But yeah, it was difficult.
And once you've done something like that, and once you've built a brand that's so omnipresent, like you can't go anywhere without it. Like my wife, by default now, if we go to like a petrol station or a garage on a trip, she will just go and get me a grenade bar.
Oh, thanks for your support.
And she went the dark chocolate mint one,
which
isn't available in a lot of places, interestingly.
Isn't it? Oh,
but it's still the best flavour, in my humble opinion,
not
other than cream egg.
Of sugar.
The limited edition cream egg one.
They're good.
Unbelievable. And the Oreo bar. Oh my God, the white chocolate one though.
Oh, thanks for your support.
So I mean,
thanks for contributing.
Yeah, I have. I contribute
to the sale value of grenades
every single day. But when you're looking at like the next thing that you might do, have you almost got? Are you looking at it like, oh, what can I do next that's that big, or do you not see it through that lens?
It's difficult because I don't want a second album. You know, you don't want something that you set up. I mean, so many people have done it, haven't they? Where they've had like a, let's say, sports nutrition business, and then they go and set up another one, but it's not as good as the first one. And it's almost like a bit of an anticlimax. If you go out, you want to go out on a high, and you want people to remember you, and you want to remember that. So I never felt the need to do something just because. I mean, you know, as any entrepreneur, you see opportunity everywhere, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of hard work. You know, Grenade wasn't built overnight. It was like 11 years where we probably worked like 50 years. You know, there was no let up. And, you know, I'm not a greedy person, as in money doesn't motivate me. It's not about what you've got. I mean, I couldn't give a shit as long as I can put my heating on and feed the dog. And, you know, that's enough for me. So I was never greedy, as in driven by having more and more and more. And I think that does drive a lot of people. But, you know, even though we had amazing experiences in Grenade and travelled all over the world, we didn't really have any time to relax or to enjoy things.
Yeah, sure.
And you know, one of the saddest things I feel is when you get to like 67 and you retire and then you drop down dead 2 weeks later, and all these things that you'd planned, I was going to play golf or go on holiday, and you never get time to do them because you're not around. So I made a promise to myself that when I was out of Grenade, I was going to go and live and travel and do all those things that I love doing.
And have you done that?
Yes.
And are you still doing that?
Yes.
That's brilliant.
I have a wonderful life.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that Grenade's sort of given me all those opportunities.
Yeah. With, we've not really talked about the Carb Killa bars, but that was such, sort of switching back to that for a second. You go from supplement to like FMCG brand in a big way. What was you sort of disregard it now, but you guys were like a £2.50 chocolate bar in a sea of 50p chocolate bars. And then you started out selling them all. Like this thing was like spread like wildfire. And maybe it didn't feel like it from the inside because you were like stoking the wildfire to actually happen. But from the outside looking in, as someone who's like trying to live a healthier life and eat less sugar, I'm like, oh, that's got a couple of grams of sugar in it, and it's got all this protein and it tastes unbelievable because it was the first protein bar that actually you would buy for flavour, and the health benefit was a bonus, not the main USP of it. What was the sort of the journey from going from supplement, which you guys knew really well, into the foods journey? What was that catalyst like?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough because we were learning on the job almost. And actually, we created a category. So, you know, protein bars weren't in, or sports supplements weren't in Tesco. So, you know, we were selling so much in specialist shops that we had an email from Tesco's. I think it was like back in 2014, 15. He said, I can't ignore you anymore. And that was almost, that made it easier because they knew they had to get into protein and supplements, but they just didn't know how to do it. So we were category captains and we almost educated them on that category. So, you know, we created the category so it was easier for other brands to come into, but it was hard for us because we had to educate the consumers and educate the buyers to a certain extent about, you know, the benefits of protein and supplements and how they were going to spike basket spend and all those sorts of things. So it was like a learning on the job.
And as you were doing the learning on the job, did you ever think, well, we've got the category that we've sort of like semi-created, and it makes sense that the specialist sports shops can kind of see the value of it because we've got the bodybuilders or the real fitness enthusiasts that understand the benefit of 21 grams of protein in a bar with only 2 grams of sugar, whatever it may be.
Label.
Oh, yeah, I've read every label. I was a subscriber on Amazon. I used to get the box by default. My wife was like, you've got about
another
4
Amazon
boxes.
Delivery,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yet another one. But was there a point when you were sort of like putting together almost the MVP of that, and when you were looking at the ingredient profile and all that stuff, before the category's created, did you ever sit down and go, "Oh, this is going to be a bloody £2.50 bar to work at the margin that we need to be at"? Nobody's done this before, or was it just so popular in that sort of like niche space you just knew it could expand out?
Yeah, I mean, like this, a lot of supplements came from the US, so protein bars were already popular over there. They had a bar called Quest, which was selling like by the bucket load.
Tom Bilyeu owned it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was ridiculous what people were buying with that. You know, they were walking out with like 8 boxes or whatever because there was like a shortage. But we knew that we never wanted to compromise on taste, and we knew that in the UK, for a protein bar to sell, it had to taste like a proper chocolate bar.
100%, yeah.
So we never compromised on the taste. We went to a chocolate manufacturer and got them to innovate with protein, but also we never compromised on the protein source. So we were from a sports supplement background where whey protein was obviously the protein that you should be using. So we made sure that that was in our bars. And whey protein is a commodity. There's a price that comes with it. So we had to be able to justify that £2.50 price point. And actually, we never got any pushback on that.
Really?
Never. I mean, we never traded on price.
No.
So we always set our stall out and this is what we're selling and this is what it gives you. And people bought into it. And I think it was all the sort of value add that Grenade gave. So like the community and, you know, people wanted to be part of it. And, you know, we had the sports nutrition credibility that moved into mass market food.
Yeah.
But we didn't, even though we sort of created that category in retail, it was all about timing as well. So we can never take credit for that. You know, protein was becoming more normalized. People were reading that, you know, they should have more protein. It was good for you, you know, bone density or whatever else, recovery. So, you know, protein was becoming normal on cereals and other foods. So timing was right for us. If we'd have tried to launch a protein bar into the market 10 years earlier, it would have been too early and I bet it wouldn't have succeeded. Or 10 years later, the market saturated, it would have been a lot harder.
Let's pause there because what Juliet's really saying here is something that a lot of founders don't always like to admit. Timing matters and it matters a lot. In business, we love the idea that success is purely down to our brilliant execution. I know I definitely like the idea of that. You work harder, you've thought better about things, you've got the best product, you've outmarketed everyone else in the market. And yes, of course, all of that matters, but also timing is often the multiplier that determines whether all that hard work actually lands or it just gets ignored. Juliet is being really honest here. Grenade didn't just win because they made a great bar. And let's be real, it is a great bar. They won because they made a great bar at the right time, at the moment that protein was starting to become normalized. Consumers were becoming more aware of protein. Retailers were becoming more open to it. The market was becoming ready for a product like that. Too early and people just don't get it. Too late and the market is already crowded. That middle window where consumer behavior is shifting, but the category is not yet fully saturated, that is where brands can really take off. But you can't always plan for that. Sometimes the product might be right, but the timing is all kinds of wrong. Sometimes the brand is good, but the culture has not yet caught up. And sometimes businesses scale because they manage to arrive at exactly the moment that the world is ready to hear about what they have to say. And that's not luck in a lazy sense, by the way. It's awareness, it's market sensitivity, it's understanding when the conditions are changing and moving decisively when they are. So the lesson here is not to sit around waiting for the perfect time because the perfect time will never arrive. The lesson here is to ask a better question. Is the market actually becoming ready for this now? Because building a great brand is not just about what you make, it's about when you show up with it as well. Now, let's get back to it. Did you ever think when you looked at the market space or the category you were going to create, was there ever a slight concern, well, hang on, Quest have already smashed it in the US market? I know at one point they had like insane valuation, which they turned down and probably retrospectively wish they'd have taken it. But did you ever think, well, why are Quest just going to switch onto it? Or did you know that it's almost like a Hershey situation, like it's massive over there, but they don't get the flavour profile that British consumers actually want?
That's exactly right. So, you know, we personally, and it's just my opinion, I didn't like the taste of Quest bars and I didn't necessarily like the taste of a lot of other protein bars out there. So that's why we wanted a proper chocolate bar, because we didn't think it would be able to sit in Maynard confectionery and retail in the UK if it didn't taste like a proper chocolate bar, because life's so short, isn't it? And like when you have chocolate, you have it as an indulgence.
It's a little treat,
So you just don't want something that tastes like shit.
Yeah, you want to enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. So we thought if we can marry up great taste with the credentials of like proper protein and, you know, a good source of protein, then, you know, that would help. But we never said we were healthy. We always said we were healthier. So we never, you know, it was high protein, low sugar. It was never, you know, a healthy bar, because obviously we had like artificial sweeteners and stuff in there. But
it's enough of a selling point for me. I was down for it. We've got to talk about the relationship that you and Al had and have. You guys were husband and wife when you went into this. You were not husband and wife when you came out of this. We talked about this before we hit the record button, and I've heard you on other podcasts saying, you know, things like it was like selling your baby and all that kind of stuff. And when I was doing the research, I was thinking, did Grenade break up your marriage, but it sounds like it was actually the complete opposite. So can you walk through the Al and Juliet love story within the sort of the Grenade context?
Yeah, of course. So like we met in the Jam House in Birmingham. Like I was absolutely hammered, and I don't really drink, so apparently I grabbed a bottle of wine, knocked over a chair on the way out, and I was taking pictures of these girls in there, and I thought, is he a really nice guy? They're on a birthday party or something, or is a complete pervert? But he obviously turned out to be a nice guy. And then, you know, we went on holiday 3 weeks later, we got engaged 5 weeks later, and then we were married 9 months later. So
wow, you didn't mess about then?
No, definitely. We like get shit done type of people.
Clearly.
And, you know, we have very complementary skills. So I'm very much like about the brand, like the look and feel. Ali's obviously a born salesperson. So we complemented each other.
What was your background before this?
So I had a really sort of traditional like schools, university or whatever else. And
you were a teacher,
qualified
you
as
said?
a teacher,
Right.
but I was absolutely fucking appalling. I was like, it was
Why?
never, I don't know, it was never my passion. And, you know,
really?
I did it because I got a degree in geography, and obviously no one knows what to do with a geography degree, so they just go into teaching. But have you ever seen that film, like Bad Teacher with Cameron Diaz?
Yeah.
I'm like that, but like obviously not as hot as Cameron Diaz. It was just like, let's just watch another video. It was like Twister or whatever else. But it was never my vocation, you know, and it was just like I was head of sixth form and I worked in a sixth form college and stuff. And it was more like, you know, pulling the kids out the pub at lunchtime and getting them out their cars that had slept in the car parks and things. And then I ended up in a rural school as their head of sixth form, and it wasn't they didn't really aspire to anything. They were going to go and work for their parents or whatever, and they were there because they were told to be there. And I found that really demotivating. And also, my life was ruled by a bell, so I knew that on every Tuesday for the next 8 weeks or the next 50, whatever it was, a term weeks, I would be in that lesson. And I hated that. I hated knowing where I was going to be every week.
Yeah.
So actually, it told me what I didn't want to do. I didn't want that structure, and it's weird because I'm like the most structured person now ever, but I didn't want those restraints really.
So how did you go from that to ending up in the distribution? Did you and Al meet and...
So I left teaching, worked for the Learning and Skills Council, where I developed products for 14 to 16-year-olds to get out of school and do vocational training about learning on the job. And then I worked for a charity as their head of education. So I sort of moved from like education into like sort of real life, but still in education. And then Al had a distribution business. So we realised that we wanted to do something together. So I went to work with him, for him, in that distribution business. So I was driving forklift, putting pallets away.
Were you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then during that journey, and feel free to tell me to fuck off because we've known each other for a grand total of like 2.5 hours, and we're sat in your house, you can do that anytime you like. But during that process, did the strain of a business put the strain on the marriage, or did the pressure of business create pressure like a diamond in that it created something that otherwise wouldn't have existed if you hadn't had the restraints of a business almost?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you asked a minute ago about, or is it, you know, did Grenade split us up or keep us together? And actually, I feel that it kept us together. That was our glue. So I think all relationships, you've got to have that reason, like a mouse and a cheese. You've got to have that cheese, that reason to keep coming back.
Who's the mouse and who's the cheese in the situation?
I don't think that's really this analogy.
Fine.
I don't know. Tom and Jerry would probably be more appropriate.
Yeah, fine.
Or Dumb and Dumber. I'm not sure which one it would be. Laurel and Hardy, but any of those. Yeah, probably like Thelma and Louise.
Thelma and Louise.
Yeah. But it was almost like you've got to have that reason to stay or that reason to keep coming. And Grenade was that baby, that glue. I mean, we were so passionate about it and we were so good at doing it together, you know, but it almost made us completely dysfunctional as husband and wife because we had all the trust and we completely trusted each other and we were always aligned with where we wanted Grenade to go. You know, we had sort of conversations, debates about how we were going to get there, but we were always completely aligned on what the vision was. And we actually had very different roles and different offices. So that obviously helped. You know, we were never nitpicking each other because I had my responsibilities and Al had his. So we didn't step on each other's toes. But it made it really dysfunctional because at the weekends, because we'd spent all week together, Al used to go off and do his stuff and I used to go off and do mine. So it was almost a bit weird. We didn't have any hobbies together other than Grenade.
Yeah.
So it was almost like we were desperate to be apart from each other when we should have been together doing the husband and wife stuff.
But it was quite the opposite.
Yeah.
It's almost, you know, a lot of married couples would stay together for the kids.
Yeah.
Did you stay together for the grenade, do you think, at a certain point?
Well, we stayed together because we were building Grenade, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there was never a question that we wouldn't, because Grenade was just so important to us.
Yeah.
I think it was probably more important than being husband and wife, you know. That was why we were meant to meet, is to build this phenomenal business. So there was never the question.
So
actually, Alan and I split up 8 months before I stepped away from day-to-day Grenade. So we actually worked together, and nobody in the business knew, because we still got on really well and we were still passionate about the business. So, you know, we never argued in the office, because you have to put on like a united front, don't you? But yeah, people didn't know.
But was there did you almost have a conversation over the dinner table one night and go, look, this, in terms of us romantically, is not going to work out, but Grenade could only exist with us working out as friends, or, you know, out of a place of mutual respect?
We never really had that conversation. One, because we never had dinner together. We literally, and again, this is a weird thing, isn't it? You know, I had my tea in front of the TV or whatever, and then was on the phone to the US or whatever, and then Al was doing his stuff. So we never had those non-Grenade times. And that was probably not a mistake, so I just wouldn't change anything. But you know, we didn't really have that life outside of Grenade, so we didn't do those normal things that we probably should have done. So we never had that conversation. It was almost, it just happened. It was just natural that we'd sort of drift apart personally, but stay together business-wise.
Right.
I know, it's weird.
It is, but if you live in like, my wife runs her own company as well, I can completely see how two driven entrepreneurs can get to that point. You know, if you're not in that sort of situation, you might be like, well, how would you never have that conversation? Or how do you eventually end up like one's having dinner at the dinner table, one's on a call to the US? But these things just happen, don't they?
That's the thing. And, you know, by the time it's got to that point, it's probably too late to do anything about it. So like we always used to feel really proud that we like divided and conquered, we used to call it. So let's divide and conquer.
You have to.
I used to go off to Kuwait and do the stuff in the Middle East.
Right.
Al used to go off to the US. So actually we were like this because we thought it was doing the business good.
And it probably was.
Yeah, it probably
realistically
was. And that was our priority. So that was probably our bad.
Was it your bad? Or was it what it should have been?
It's different. I mean, it was just the right thing to do
at the time. Could Grenade have been the success that it was and still is, had you not have been romantically linked? Could you have been business partners only to start with, or did it need that genuine tightness that only a married couple can have to get it off the ground?
That's a really difficult question. Now looking back, probably, you know, we get on well as friends, and like, you know, we talk anyway, and like we still have joint businesses together. So I don't know. I mean, like we talked about like holidays were work. And, you know, we talked about work at home. So that's a really difficult question to answer. Maybe we did need that husband and wife, you know, living together to build it as rapidly, I suppose, as we did. I don't know.
Interesting. Interesting. You never know, because it is what it is. Let's pause there, because what Juliet's just shared is probably one of the most honest founder insights in this whole episode, and probably one of the most honest insights we've had across the whole of Building the Brand series so far. We often romanticize co-founder relationships, especially when the founders are also a couple. From the outside, it can look powerful. It looks aligned, unbreakable, like the business must be stronger because the relationship is so tight. But what Juliet just shared is much more nuanced than that. Grenade didn't just sit alongside their marriage. In many ways, it actually became the glue that held it together. And that's a really powerful insight, because when you're building something all-consuming like this, something that gives you purpose, identity, momentum, and a shared mission, the business can become bigger than the relationship itself. That is what makes this so interesting. Juliet and Al clearly had complementary skills. They were aligned on the vision and the mission, and they loved what they were building. They trusted each other. They worked brilliantly together. And in a business sense, that's gold. But what she also describes is how the business became the thing that they did together, to the point where there wasn't much left outside of it. The company was their bond. So this pause isn't really about whether you should or shouldn't build a business with a partner, especially a romantic partner. It's an understanding that there's a trade-off. A business absolutely can bring two people closer together. It can give you purpose, connection, momentum, and a shared meaning. But if you're not careful, it can also become the only thing that's connected you. When that happens, you're no longer just building the company, you're building your whole life around it. And that can create something extraordinary like they did with Grenade, but it can also cost more than most people realise. Now, let's get back to it. A couple more questions because I want to be respectful of your time because you've been a very gracious host. When was the... Oh, I've got to ask you this question.
Oh, okay.
So Gary Winter, who's one of our listeners, he reached out and he said, how did the Oreo deal come about and how does a deal like that actually get done?
I remember before we sold to Mondelez, so we had a failed sale process in 2019 and Mondelez, I think, were interested then. And we always wanted to do like a collab. Right. So we wanted to do like a Biscoff one to start off with. I remember that. And like trying to get Lotus on board or whatever, it was always difficult.
Right.
But when Mondelez bought us, it was obviously a perfect excuse to do an Oreo collab because they obviously own Oreo. And that was the first bar that they manufactured in-house. So we used third-party manufacturing, but then obviously when they bought us, it took a bit of time because obviously we had to get them to innovate with protein, but that was the first bar that was done in-house. So it's just a perfect fit and it makes sense, doesn't it?
And is there in those sort of situations, is there like a Grenade brand team and an Oreo brand team and you have to sort of go, well, what's the stronger brand here and does the branding align with each other's values and all that sort of nonsense? Or is it sort of like internally someone has got this the sort of the big green mark and can go tick, let's just do that?
I mean, I wasn't in the business then, but the Grenade team is still the Grenade team. So it sits at Mondelez, it sits at Cadbury's in Bourneville, but it's still very much like a separate entity. Right. But it would have been easier to pick up the phone to somebody and say, oh, look, Oreo brand manager, let's do a collab. So it benefits both parties.
Yeah, 100%.
And there's no like licensing or anything like that, which I guess you get if you do an external collab.
With regards to the Cadbury's Bourneville thing, I know that originally when you and Al sort of started out on this journey together, the ideal dream exit for you guys was to sell to Cadbury's.
Yeah, I remember having that conversation.
What was it about Cadbury's that you wanted to sell? Was it almost like the family values or what it stood for or the what they had built in Bourneville itself? What was it about?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that it was like the family values and all that, but it wasn't. I think it was the fact that, Cadbury's were the biggest chocolate manufacturing. It was a brand that everybody knew.
Yeah.
So it was probably a bit more synonymous with the fact that they were a UK brand. Yeah. And we wanted that sort of profile, really, I guess. It just felt like a natural home when it came to it.
Yeah. And how important do you think it was? Did you build it to sell from the get-go?
That's it. We always wanted a global brand,
right?
Hence the grenade-shaped container, because it doesn't matter what language you spoke. And we also wanted to sell to Cadbury's. So I don't really know. We must have done, but it was never about. A lot of people start their business think I'm going to sell, and even though we probably thought that.
That's not why you did it.
Make decisions based on that. Yeah. We made decisions daily, weekly, monthly, annually, or whatever on what was right for the business, not for that sale value. And actually, when we set ourselves up, for example, we bought grenadefatburner.co.uk. And then to get grenade.com, we had to buy that from someone in the US. So in hindsight, if we'd have thought we were going to be a saleable global brand, we should have bought that from day one.
Yeah.
So we didn't necessarily plan all the growth around that big exit. And a lot of people do that. And I think it's really sad because there's a lot to be said for having a really good lifestyle business that feeds you and your family and you genuinely enjoy.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not all about selling.
Yeah. A friend of mine, he ran a very, very successful travel brand. We ran 2 separate billion-dollar travel brands. I remember him saying to me that when you decide you're going to sell, get really clear on who you're going to sell to and then build the business that they want to buy.
Yeah.
So they almost have to buy it. So during the process, and you said sort of the exit or the potential exit in 2019 that fell through, did you ever have offers come on the table? It's like, oh, Nestle have come in for us, but you're like, but that's not Cadbury's. We've got to stick the course and get it to the place we want to get it to.
I mean, no, because obviously we'd sold a majority first time round, which we probably shouldn't have done, but they only did majority deals. So the direction was almost a bit dictated by them because they had the majority. Obviously, we went along with it and there were conversations, but we never said no to anyone because we didn't like the business, if that makes sense, because it wasn't really our decision.
Right.
And there were only a few players in that in that sort of space anyway.
Yeah, of course.
So it was quite limited with who we could sell to. You know, we were never going to sell to, I don't know, someone that didn't need that high protein, low sugar chocolate bar, because it just wouldn't have been worth it for them.
A fit, yeah.
Yeah.
You just said there, 2014, we sold the majority, which we probably shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
Why should you not have done that if you look back?
I mean, the guys at Grove, that's the only deal that they did. And I think we were quite flattered. So hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? And, you know, I really genuinely wouldn't change anything about the journey, but it did almost change, or not change the direction, but make us go in a certain direction, because when they wanted to exit, when they wanted to give their investors a return, we had to go along with that. I mean, we did look at, we thought about, oh, could we do MBOs or whatever, but that's always seems a bit passive aggressive. And, you know, we never wanted to be like that because we never fell out with them.
Yeah.
We probably just said to ourselves, we never should have sold that majority to start off with, because we didn't need the money.
Yeah, so, yeah, interesting. I had another friend of mine who sold.
I've got a lot of friends.
I've got a lot of friends.
Yeah, I haven't got nearly as many friends.
I've got a lot
as
of useful friends.
Yeah.
I've got, my friendship group is more successful than me, but you're quite the opposite probably. But another pal of mine, he owns Leon restaurants.
Okay, yeah.
And he sold the company in 2021. He's recently just bought it back. But I remember I had a conversation with him, and he said that when you sell a majority of your company, it's no longer your company.
Yeah, even though you have ownership mentality.
Yeah, did you feel that in 2014 when you've done the majority sale? Did it change? You know, your Instagram handle was Grenade Founder.
Yeah.
Did it change your mentality towards it at all?
No, to be honest with you, no. And I think because Grove Point was so good, as in they weren't, you know, poking every day.
They were there to support.
They were there to support as opposed to direct.
Yeah.
So that did make a big difference. And the business was growing, so they just left us to go and do what we were really good at doing, which was growing the business.
Yeah.
If the business wasn't as growing, that's good English. If the business wasn't growing, there might have been some different conversations, and they might have been a bit more involved. But no, we still had ownership mentality, and we still knew that it was down to us to drive the growth and to give them a return. So it actually just made us work harder. That was possible. You know, because they put their money, their trust in us.
Yeah.
You know, and we wanted to show them that it was a good investment and we could give them a return.
So those guys, they invested in you in 2014, and then there was another exit in 2019. So did they sell out their share in 2019?
They sold out their share in 2017 to Lion Capital.
Right.
And then obviously they fully exited in 2021 when it went to Mondelez.
And that Lion Capital journey, are they coming in almost... It's pretty much the VC playbook, isn't it? Come in, chuck a bunch of money at it, get growth and scale, and sell it on. It's almost like a wrap-up deal within a 5-year context. Did that change the model that the business was growing in? Because obviously, like I said, with
a little bit.
Growth Capital, they were just there to let you guys crack on with it. Was it more of a, I guess, as more money comes in, there's going to be more red tape around it?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. But also, you know, they put more money into it. I think that was a 72 mil deal. So, like, you know, they've invested a lot of money. So they're well within their rights to expect more.
Yeah, of course.
If that makes sense. You know, if you give someone 50 quid, you're probably going to be less bothered than if you give them 500 million. You know, you're not going to want to know the detail but you know, they had a right to ask for more and expect more. And, you know, that the business was bigger as well. So, you know, it was all about the spreadsheets and the margins and, you know, what was going to affect EBITDA and, you know, less about the brand building maybe. It became more of a numbers game.
As it got bigger, did your enjoyment of it change? Because you seem like you love brand, you love growth, you love marketing. You know, you and Al were there with the pull-up banners and a tank at the NEC because you couldn't afford anything else. Did you enjoy that part of the journey more than the spreadsheets, EBITDA?
Well, I don't think we were involved in the spreadsheets, EBITDA, or whatever else, but like we still were freed up to do our founder stuff.
Right.
And, you know, there's always a bit of the founder's DNA in a business. And if you lose that, then the business loses what it makes it special. So even though we had a bigger team and obviously we got account managers and, you know, we had people that looked at the data and all that sort of stuff, category data that we never had before, we still had fun when we were doing it. So we still did all the experiential marketing. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I just think, you know, maybe it was type 2 fun.
Type 2
You know,
fun.
like it's not like that raw sort of, you look back and, you know, you think, well, actually it was fun, but, you know, not whilst you were doing it.
It's not driving a
few
tank down Marble Arch.
Yeah,
with
it's not like that
Haskell on the
stuff
back.
with, you know, where you don't have to get permissions to do everything. You probably have to be a bit more accountable. So yeah, type 2 fun.
Type 2 fun. That's a nice way of looking at it. Final couple of questions, which I said a minute ago, and then I completely lied to you. This time I actually mean it. Was there, obviously there's been many, many moments where you've probably gone, bloody hell, this thing's really going to pop. What was the one big thing, or the one first moment where you were like, hey, Al, I think this is going to go, you know. I think we are on something here.
I mean, I don't think there was ever that moment. I don't think, you know, what does everyone call it? That game changer. I just hate how it's such a crap term, isn't it? There was nothing that, you know, not that one moment, but I do think having Carb Killa and the market and the timing, that all worked in our favour, and it actually moved us from specialist sport into mass market food. And that obviously opened up more countries, more retailers, more consumers. You know, social media was growing, so all that was working in our favour. Women love chocolate. Women would talk about Carb Killa online. So, you know, everything just seemed to be, the timing was right.
Was the timing right, and then you got lucky because of that, or did you make the timing right?
I think the timing was right, and I don't think luck comes into it. I think it was timing, because like lucky is when you win the lottery, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you pick your numbers and it turns up. I mean, we created a lot of luck, or opportunities maybe.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were there when all this started to grow. We thought, you know what, right, we can make this work with Tesco's, we can make this work with Waitrose, but we kept pushing all the time. We never sat back and thought, you know what, we've made it. It was always driving it forward.
What's next for you then? As I shut the book on this conversation.
And the dog wakes up.
Sorry, dog. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, I mean, I still work with brands now, so I sit on a few boards, do some like non-exec chairperson roles.
Do you like doing that, or do you want to get more stuck into it? You seem to me like a real doer of stuff.
I am a doer, and working with the founders is really important. So, you know, I work with founders that I like, where I genuinely think I can add value. And if I don't, then it's just a waste of my time and their time as well.
Sure.
I'm really passionate about sort of entrepreneurship and encouraging young people, like the next generation of entrepreneurs, because there's so much red tape in this country at the moment, and no one seems to be supportive of people that get off their arse and try and do something different. They just seem to get taxed more, or they can't do this because of this. So I've just been made a professor, which is ironic for someone that took 3 times to get their maths GCSE at the University of Exeter. There's their business school there. So they have a great sort of centre for entrepreneurship. So I'm really sort of enjoying working with them.
Do you need us to cut out the bit where you said that you're a terrible crap teacher?
No,
from this conversation.
I did actually do my teaching qualification there. So
did you?
I was like, the qualification was good. It was
just
never for me. Yeah. Dig yourself out of that one, Jules. And also it's about giving back a little bit. So I'm just a trustee of a charity as well. So, you know, therapy dogs, because obviously Peanut is my whole world. And, you know, we go into old people's homes and stuff with them and just try and support them and, you know, make it run more like a business. So, yeah, I don't want to do something just for the sake of doing it. I like to do things because I enjoy doing it. And one of the things that Grenade has enabled me is to have choice. And I'm in such a fortunate position that I only really, apart from this, obviously, which was a chore, I only have to do things that I genuinely enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So, and that's a really nice position to be in.
What sort of founders do you like working with? Like what sort of business would get you out of bed and go, oh, I'd love to support them? Or is it more the person or the business?
I think it's the product. The product has to be good and credible. And, you know, whether it's a food product, it has to be taste nice, say what it does on the tin. You know, I'm all about branding, like the positioning and the message and how they talk to the end consumers. So it's all about those sort of challenges. So one of the businesses I work with, mobile phone accessory brand, Joe, the founder there, is quite eccentric, but he's so passionate about it. And I just love that.
Amazing.
Yeah, just, you know, that's what excites you.
If somebody has loved this conversation and wants to get in touch with you, where should they reach out, or should they not? Just don't bother.
Well, no, I'm obviously on LinkedIn and like Instagram or whatever. Don't bother. Rude.
Don't bother.
So,
I'll say that from your perspective, not say that they shouldn't bother. They would be lucky to have you. Don't bother with her.
Fucking talks. So, gosh,
it's like a sweatbox house. It's so hot.
How's it?
That's why she's a therapy dog.
You know, you know what? I remember saying to Al when we first started Grenade, I said, thank you for letting me be warm. And you know, when you realise that you're not actually a knob, because it's the small things in life that you really appreciate, like being able to put the heating on, or, you know, the sun shining and all that sort of stuff. So it is so hot in here that I'm really hot. I shouldn't have worn a jumper. Are we bright red?
I think we're all right. I think we're all right.
Okay.
Thank you for taking the time. I know this has been an absolute chore for you. I've had a lovely little time, though, so thank you for the conversation. I appreciate it. Cheers, Jules.